Well, my name's Neil McIntosh and I work for the European Centre for Nature Conservation, ECNC. We're a network organisation, an NGO. We're based in Tilburg in the Netherlands, but we work across Europe. So not only the EU, but wider Europe as well. So we work also with the countries beyond the Eastern European member states. ECNC is the lead contractor that's been appointed by the European Commission to help the implementation and development of a process which they launched in 2011. It's called the Natura 2000 biogeographical process. And this is a large, long-term process. It involves member states in different biogeographical regions, along with expert networks working together to see how they can benefit from collaboration, cooperation in terms of implementing Natura 2000. So it has a very practical focus. Some of the discussions are very technical in the sense of what are the best conservation measures to implement grassland management regimes. But some other discussions are more thematic, so they're more about what's the relationship between Natura 2000 and farmland and agricultural produce. So through the process we're generating a substantial amount of information, but also experience. And also within the process we're identifying where there are gaps in current knowledge or where there could be improvements in implementing Natura 2000. So that's the process, and it's a huge process. It's very demanding, but a very good process. Natura 2000 and the Natura 2000 biogeographical process are fundamental and integral to the EU 2020 biodiversity strategy. So in terms of the Birds and Habitats Directive. And we've just had the State of Environment report announced just in late May. And within that there are signs of good progress, but there are also a lot of alarm bells about the state of, or the favourable conservation status or unfavourable conservation status of particular species and habitats. So there remains a lot to be done, but the Natura 2000 biogeographical process really is an added value means to enable the member states to work together through, for example, LIFE projects or also nationally funded projects in collaboration to identify what, say for example, Poland and Germany have identified as being, okay, these are particularly common issues, these are common challenges, so how can we work together to help each other fulfill our legal obligations? In fact, the newer countries, they also, when they were pre-accession, they had, through the Emerald network, they had opportunities to learn about the sort of philosophy, essentially, behind Natura 2000. So they were very much aware. Of course, it varied from country to country, but there was a high awareness of what Natura 2000 is. For me, Natura 2000 itself is a process. So it should be an enabling legislation. For sure, it means that some practices have to stop because they're bad for nature and bad for the species and habitats that are of community importance. But the process of management that is implied within Natura 2000 is very much, for me anyway, an inclusive process. And so when we see the different examples, we also are very aware of where the process of Natura 2000 is positive and good. It's not to say that there's no problems, but the process itself can be a means to enable those problems to be addressed. But also within the Natura 2000 biogeographical process, we're identifying real issues, real challenges it's not always easy, especially when you have a Natura 2000 site which is very complex, very dynamic. Perhaps there's different stakeholders or many diverse stakeholders with different expectations about what they think should be achieved through their land, effectively. And some stakeholders view Natura 2000 with a degree of suspicion, or they think it means that they can't continue to do things that they've maybe been doing for centuries. But that's often a result of misunderstanding or miscommunication, because for sure there will be some practices that need to stop, but there are perhaps alternative approaches. So whenever you have different stakeholders involved in the Natura 2000 process, that's where you find opportunities to identify what the problems are, but where the solutions lie as well. And so to me that's very important. It's about enabling people to work together, people in organisations to work together. And that's when you can see the magic happening. When that process is right, then Natura 2000 is right. I think within different member states, so including Austria, there's always an opportunity to do more, especially from the European Commission's perspective. And that's why Natura 2000 is important, because it is unique. It's unique in the world. This network of ecologically connected sites is a very unique thing, a very special thing. And within that, the European Commission really expect the member states to fulfill their responsibilities. This legislation is hugely important, and within different member states, the interpretation of that responsibility can vary. So the responsibility lies at the member state, the national government, but they have, over the years, developed and implemented a process where the discussions and the necessary interactions about how to implement Natura 2000 sits with the local people, definitely. And through the LIFE programme, for example, there are opportunities to engage countries that are non-EU. So the funding by law has to sit within the EU country, but there are opportunities through that to develop the relationships with countries that are beyond the EU, where there would be a direct impact on the management or implementation of Natura 2000 in that country. So a very important decision, I think, and I think it does make sure that nature has no barriers or boundaries. There's no sort of walls. It's a dynamic thing. So therefore, the implementation of Natura 2000 and the protection of nature has to be dynamic as well. So it's very much people and organisations in different countries responding to the needs of nature that they have responsibilities for. And it's not only responsibilities about now, it's responsibilities about the future.